Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have the full review of the Huawei Nova 11. Let's get started. This device is part of Huawei's mid-range. Its launch price in Mexico has been 9,999 pesos. On the screen you see the reference price in dollars, so you have more or less an idea. But remember that the prices here are not the same as over there. In Mexico, Huawei also offers an additional option with a surprise package, which has a higher price of 12,998 pesos. Again, you have the reference price. With this price, it puts it to compete in a good way in the mid-range with some strengths and some weaknesses that we will get to know little by little throughout this video. So let's start with the design. Like many Huawei devices, the design will be one of its strongest points because it has a great use of the front, incorporating very thin bezels such as the top but also at the bottom, unlike many other devices that at the bottom integrate a much larger bezel. However, unlike the Pro model, in this case we do not find Kunlun glass to have good resistance against falls, so you have to be much more careful. In fact, it also does not incorporate Gorilla Glass or any other special protection on the glass, so I think resistance may be one of its weak points. On the right side, we have the power button with an orange highlight and the volume buttons. At the top, the device has a microphone and an audio output that works in conjunction with the earpiece for calls. The left side is completely clean at 6.88 millimeters thick. With this, we confirm that it is an extremely thin device and also very light, having a weight of only 168 grams. Below is the main speaker, USB-C port, a microphone, and the tray. In Mexico, the dual SIM model is distributed, but it may vary depending on the regions. In my hands, I have the Champagne edition, but it is also available in gold black. This back cover reconfirms the excellent design that Huawei has with a very nice aesthetic. The camera module with an oval format, and as you can see, is a very reflective design that also projects different colors, giving at times a blue color. This back cover and the frames are made of plastic, so it does not offer premium materials, but they do feel good in the hand. But one aspect in which Huawei will have to improve will be to integrate water and dust resistance, because this device does not. The screen will be another of its strongest points without a doubt, as it offers us good features in every way. Its size is 6.7 inches and has OLED technology that guarantees us very intense colors, very high contrast, and is also compatible with HDR content, so that the brightest areas of the image will also raise the intensity of the brightness of the screen to have an excellent and very realistic experience. In addition, the resolution is Full HD Plus 2412 by 1084 pixels to be very exact, so it also gives us a good level of detail. It also has good viewing angles for a good viewing experience from some side, and also has an excellent maximum brightness for good outdoor viewing, and the minimum brightness is also very comfortable for a night use. It also integrates several visual rest modes with 2 color calibration modes. The screen goes up to 120 Hz in its refresh rate to offer super smooth movements in conjunction with a very well adapted interface, or also when there is static content it can go down to 60 Hz, which is not something so spectacular, but in the range we can still accept it. Ideally it would go down to less than 60, but I insist that for this price we cannot get so demanding in that aspect. Now you are going to listen to an audio recorded with this device.
Esta es una prueba del audio para que puedas notar cómo es que pueden llegar a grabar estos micrófonos.
As I told you, the first microphone is at the bottom and the second microphone is at the top. If you record a video horizontally, it is compatible with stereo recording system. It still does not offer a third microphone for more advanced functions, and in this price range there are some other devices that do. For sound broadcasting, we also have support for stereo sound. Let's listen to a small test, but remember that it is not the same as listening to it live. Please note that there is no headphone jack, which can be considered as a weak point. You can connect headphones via the USB-C port, and when headphones are connected, you can access the Huawei Histon sound effects to select a surround sound preset, or also to access a 10-band equalizer with a bass amplifier available. However, if you disconnect the headphones, these additional functions are disabled. Fortunately, it also works with advanced headphones such as LDAC to deliver high-resolution sound with compatible wireless headphones. The best wireless sound experience will be achieved if you connect headphones of the same brand, as they also have low latency features. The front camera is 60 megapixels, incorporating a very high resolution, but the aperture f2.4 is not so bright. As usual, when activating the front camera, immediately enters the portrait mode, where we have available the beauty function with 3 parameters such as unifying the skin tone, sharpen the chin, and adjust the tone. The bokeh effect will also be available with different shapes such as hearts or swirl. The capture speed is not very high, and if you hold down the shutter, you can't access a burst either. It also does not have easy capture through the palm of your hand. What you can enable is a sound control to take the picture when you speak loudly or when you say a keyword like cheese. It also integrates smile capture and floating shutter for more convenient capture. But ideally for me, it would also integrate gesture capture. The high-resolution sensor that has the front camera will actually merge the pixels to have a good treatment of light, and the photos seem to me that come out well with good level of detail and good colors. But what I like most about this camera is its great range. You can take a picture with a large group of friends and everyone will fit in well. In backlit conditions, the preview still doesn't look optimized, but after taking the picture, it is processed and has a good balance of highlights and shadows, retaining good level of detail, although the color gets a little bit paler in this kind of conditions. However, when you don't have so much light, the camera suffers a lot. Look at the result we have at night with a very blue coloration in the darkest parts. In night conditions with indirect light, we have a bad result. The only areas that come out well are those that received a little light, but the darkest parts come out with a lot of noise, very little level of detail, so the result is not really good. Look at the backlit results at night. They are still quite bad. With the screen, you can support yourself to illuminate the face a little better, but it's still a bad result that deserves to be corrected with an update. Although in not so extreme environments, the screen can help a little more, especially if you use the night mode. And finally, note that the portrait mode of the front camera is not very accurate. Fortunately, in faces it does a good job, but it is not able to detect objects that are at the same distance as you to keep them in focus, so the result is not very natural. On the back is the 50 megapixel main camera with f1.9 aperture and an ultra-wide-angle autofocus camera that is also an 8 megapixel macro camera with f2.2 aperture. The capture speed looks good, but when holding down to start a burst, you have to notice that it takes a long time to start, and also the burst is quite slow. There are filters available to use, but they are not previewed in real time. By tapping on the screen, you can adjust the brightness, but if you want a more precise setting, you can enter the professional mode. Within this mode, you can adjust the type of metering, the ISO, which can go up to 409,600 thanks to the RYYB sensor it incorporates. The shutter speed can go up to 30 seconds. Exposure compensation, focus, and white balance are also available. The device also allows the capture of raw photos for advanced post-development. From the main interface of the camera, it does not automatically recognize documents, but you can enter the document mode to scan these sheets easily, and it will automatically crop them, and in the additional options you can share them as PDF. QR codes are also not recognized from the main camera interface, but you can access the AI lens application in the upper left corner, where you can do this action. This camera does have the necessary speed to capture the exact moment, even without blurring movement, although the burst takes a long time to start. The device includes a 50 megapixel mode with artificial intelligence, so you can crop your photos and reframe them while maintaining a good level of detail. Although I feel it fails to take full advantage of the sensor's information. Outdoor photos have good color and also a good level of detail. I think overall I like the results. But the highlights will be at night, as it definitely maintains a very high color intensity, and even in the darkest areas we still have a good level of detail. Notice how well a photograph comes out in very dark environments. Even in this photograph, which is from the shadow side, and still manages to maintain good level of detail considering how dark that place was. This is an example capture with the ultra-wide camera, just so you can see how dark we were. But if you are still not surprised, look at this preview. It is practically in total darkness, and after taking the picture, look at the result. Undoubtedly, this device is tremendous at capturing photos in very low light thanks to its RYYYB sensor. Also in difficult backlit conditions, it does a good job, although the preview still doesn't look well optimized. But after taking the picture and processing it, balances lights and shadows perfectly well. unlike its big brother that didn't do a good job here. The zoom is definitely good. We have here the reference picture, then we have the 2x digital zoom picture, then we have 5x, and even the device allows you to go up to 10x. And it seems to me that it maintains a good level of detail considering we are talking about digital zoom and in a price range that is still not very high. On the other hand, let's talk now about the ultra-wide camera. To start by looking at a reference photograph with the main camera, and now we do have the result of the ultra-wide camera that offers good amplitude fulfilling its objective, although we do not have as much level of detail and we also have a bit of chromatic aberration, although honestly the big brother had even more chromatic aberration, so I am surprised that in this, which is the base device, we have a better performance in most cases. Even at night, if you have a good light source and nearby comes out, a good result, although in extreme darkness conditions will not have a good performance unlike the main camera. However, also remember that you can take panoramic photos if you want to capture more space. I love the macro photography of this device because of the good bokeh effect that is generated in the background while maintaining an excellent level of detail in the foreground. You can even apply some digital zoom to have an even more detailed picture. But remember that you can use the ultra-wide camera as a macro camera because it has autofocus, so you can achieve this incredibly high level of detail. It even allows you to apply digital zoom in this macro mode, although I already see it a bit forced, but honestly, I find it a good picture. Finally, the portrait mode is very well exploited by Huawei, not only in the distance 1x, but also allows you to take pictures using digital zoom 2x. And the result seems to me very nice, and even 3x still maintains a good level of detail, giving a very nice result. Undoubtedly, portraits are its strong point. Video recording can be in 4K at 30 frames per second, and the ultra-wide camera can also record in this resolution. However, if you want to record at 60 frames per second, you must lower the resolution to full HD, but the ultra-wide camera does not support this frame rate. In video recording, we also have several color effects available, although they cannot be previewed in real time, and lowers the resolution to full HD. A beauty effect is also available to blur the skin, but again the resolution will drop to full HD. When recording, you can have a convenient slider for zooming, although it does not include direct presets to switch between one lens and another, but it can take snapshots while you are recording, also pause and resume content, turn on and off the flashlight, but what I like most is that it allows you to rotate to the front camera without the need to stop your recording. This is a feature that very few devices allow. If you tap on screen, you can adjust the focus and exposure, but if you want more advanced settings, you can enter the professional mode and switch to video, and you practically have the same manual settings of photography, but now for recording. Remember that Huawei also includes a multi-camera mode that allows you to select the cameras of other devices that have the same account, so you have a fully multi-camera experience without the need for complex equipment, and this is a feature that only Huawei devices offer. They also offer a vlog mode to record with multiple cameras at the same time, or to apply special effects, so the video recording has very good options. I find the video enjoyable, but there are moments where it feels slightly choppy. Fortunately, the colors are fine and you don't feel aggressive jumps in exposure or white balance. The simple fact that it records in 4K gives it an advantage over many of its competitors. Even at night, it has good quality when you still have a good light source nearby while maintaining good colors, good detail, and low noise. Although at night you can get a bit more aggressive jumps in both exposure and white balance, and obviously it is not able to balance highlights and shadows very well in these dark conditions. The ultra-wide camera fortunately still manages to retain good light capture, although it has much more noise presence unlike the main camera, and also feels slightly choppy at times. In backlighting, I find it does a very good job, although not totally perfect, as you do get to perceive some burnt areas, but believe me, it was a very extreme condition I was recording in because of the low lighting my face was getting. However, the device does a good job, even though it gives priority to illuminate the face when it detects it, but it doesn't make such aggressive light jumps. The stabilization is basic, so if you're walking, you'll still get a good result, but if you're running, you won't have such a nice result as it doesn't have a super stable mode. The zoom is also not that amazing to begin with because the ultra-wide camera records with a lot of chromatic aberration and does not have as impressive a range as in photography. However, fortunately it maintains good stabilization, although it feels a bit choppy when you zoom in or out. The focus will be very fast, especially in fast movements, thanks to the laser focus that incorporates. Therefore, this activity is not complicated, especially in aggressive movements. In more subtle movements will depend on the type of object. There are times when it can get confused, but simply touching the screen, indicating the object you want to focus, will make it very fast. It also includes a portrait recording mode, blurring the background, although it feels a bit artificial because the detection of the edges is not as accurate. Even if there is more movement, will cost more work. It also does not change the intensity of the blur if the person approaches or moves away, and although it maintains a good stabilization, the movement will cost much more work to maintain an accurate focus in addition to the objects that keeps them out of focus, unlike the photograph where we saw a very natural result. It also integrates several slow motion modes. First, we have full HD at about 20 frames per second. We also have HD at 240 frames per second if you want slower but with less level of detail. And finally can reach 960 frames per second in HD, although it only lets you record a fragment of time, but for social networks can be an attractive result. The fast camera can go from 15x to 1800x, so you could also record landscapes in a spectacular way, but for recording people it can be too fast. The front camera can also record video in 4K, and that is another of its strongest points because in the price range, not many devices have these capabilities. What I like most, as I had already indicated in the photograph, is the amplitude that we have. So for blogging is very good because you do not need to stretch too much arm. Even notes that when you go walking maintains a good stabilization. Although the colors are not as accurate, feels a representation of slightly pale colors and backlit. We do not have a good result as it will give full priority to illuminate the face, sacrificing much of the backlit areas of the background. But if you find it a very wide camera, you can change its perspective using a little digital zoom, but remember that in this case we do not have the autofocus that we do have in its big brother. However, at night, and when there is not much light in the environment, you will have a much worse result because it does not have a good aperture. This is the price to pay in exchange for having such a wide camera. In the day goes very well, but at night you feel very little light input, much noise present in the environment, and even if you go to areas of much lower light will suffer even more. Although it turns on the screen automatically to try to better illuminate your face, but it seems to me that it does not get it very well. So the night recording with the front camera definitely didn't appeal to me. Interestingly, the front camera does have a fast camera mode just like the rear camera, and it also has a slow motion mode in full HD at 120 frames per second. Or you can go slower still at 240 frames per second by lowering the resolution to HD. And remember that Huawei also offers a dual recording mode to show both cameras at the same time. You can be in a split screen mode. And what I like is that it also keeps the autofocus of the main camera so you can show things while you are showing your face reactions. It also has zoom enabled and even also lets you switch to the ultra wide camera without the need to stop the video. So it seems to me a very good multi-camera recording system. You can even record with the ultra-wide camera and the main camera at the same time, and you can make this switch without stopping the video. And remember that picture-in-picture mode is also available with all the same capabilities that I mentioned before. This device comes with EMUI 13 as well as its operating system that integrates several options. Remember that it does not come with Android and therefore it works under Huawei services. However, you can install through App Gallery several Google services, although the experience may be slightly different. That's why I always tell you that I currently recommend Huawei devices only for technology enthusiasts who are not afraid to install applications from external sources. But if you consider yourself a more basic user, better go for some other brand. Huawei integrates advanced features such as screen capture through 2 knuckle taps, or you can also tap with 2 knuckles on screen twice to take a video capture. Although the screen recording is not done in full HD but only in HD+. With the knuckle, you can also make specific cuts on screen. And something I love about Huawei is that you can transform apps from full screen to floating screen in a very simple way, and these apps you can resize and reposition them on screen as you want. Unfortunately, it only allows you to open one app at a time in this floating format, but the good news is that YouTube also works in this format. Another way to open these apps is by doing this on-screen gesture and a shortcut bar will appear. Super Hub is another outstanding feature that Huawei integrates. It is a shared clipboard between all your Huawei devices with the same account. That is, this Super Hub will also appear on your computer or tablet, and from there you can paste content extracted from the cell phone. In the photo editor that incorporates, you will also find an intelligent eraser option so that you simply select an object and through artificial intelligence the device will do the magic for you. Finally, we will also have the always on display option that allows us to incorporate covers on our locked device without consuming so much energy to show the time notifications or phrases that you have written, which gives a very nice touch of personalization to your device. However, despite being a fairly complete system, Huawei for the moment has not guaranteed any period of updates for this device. Although knowing the history that Huawei has managed in the past, we could be sure that it will receive a good number of updates, but we would like them to be guaranteed updates. In security, this device offers a fingerprint reader inside the screen which gives it a modern touch, although it is not as fast as the ultrasonic readers that we could find in high-end devices. You can have 5 different fingerprints registered, and we also have different animations that you can set to customize the unlock. Its operation is correct, although, as I say, it is not as fast as we would like. However, by holding for a little while the fingerprint on the screen, the device will unlock automatically. It also offers facial recognition, but it is not something that I recommend much because the device itself gives us to understand that it is not so safe unlocking and that someone similar to us could easily unlock the device. And if what you want is a comfortable experience, fortunately it has the smart unlock so that while connected to some secure Bluetooth devices, the screen won't lock. In addition, the suite of security options it has is very broad, incorporating options such as App Lock, Password Manager, File Safe, and an option to find your device when you have lost it by simply logging into cloud.huawei.com. In the privacy options, you will also see a permissions manager, an option to remove metadata when sharing your photos, and finally a private space that is like having 2 phones in one. Each space has its own applications and files, and you can even enter each space with different fingerprints. From my point of view, the only thing missing in terms of security would be a child mode that other manufacturers integrate, and even Huawei integrates it in their tablets but not yet in their cell phones. Battery life has been very good in my tests. Even though its capacity is 4500 milliamps, it actually lasted me much longer than batteries with 5000 milliamps last. Remember that I do an extreme drain test using this application. I leave it running in the background while in the foreground I play videos, although in this case I played the videos from the browser by entering youtube.com, and with these activities I managed to download 50% in 4 hours 30 minutes approximately, being far superior to the vast majority of devices. It also has a normal power saving mode that could help you maximize battery life, but it does not have an extreme power saving mode that can help us in an emergency, so that is a pending issue for Huawei. If you don't care about battery consumption, you can enable maximum performance mode so that the processor is squeezed to 100% and it has a very good management of apps running in the background, but if you want to manually tell it which apps you do want to keep running in the background, you can do so. It comes with a 66-watt charger included in the box, which is very fast. In 15 minutes it recharged 47% and in 30 minutes 82%, finishing a full charge in less than 40 minutes. But if you are worried about damaging the battery, fortunately here it shows you what its maximum capacity is. It also has smart charging, or it also has a charge limit customization. So if you need to keep it plugged into the power all day, you can tell it not to charge beyond 70 so that the battery stays in good health. So the whole battery point is one of its strongest points. On the other hand, connectivity is not one of the points that this device can boast since it does not have support for 5G networks. In Mexico, I do not consider this point so relevant because the 5G network in Mexico is not so fast, so there is not much difference yet. But if in other countries the 5G network really makes a difference, it will be an important point to consider. Fortunately, it has a data blocking mode that will help you decide which applications can and cannot access your mobile data service to avoid unnecessary charges. Fortunately, it does support Wi-Fi 6 networks, so with this type of wireless networks you can have high download speeds, and it also has NFC. However, since in Mexico it does not have Google services, it will be very complicated to use Google Wallet to make mobile payments, but if your bank application is compatible and has this option, you could pay using the cell phone. Also, there are other small drawbacks to wireless screen projection because you don't have Google services, so you can't project to a Chromecast, but you can wirelessly project your screen to other monitors or screens. But Android Auto is an option that does not bring available. So if you are a user who likes to connect your cell phone to the screen of your vehicle, this does not bring the option. And regarding the sensors, the only bad thing I can tell you is that it has a virtual proximity sensor, so its activation is not so easy, but when you place it near your ear, it is enabled. The ecosystem is another point to consider when deciding to buy a cell phone, and Huawei has a very large ecosystem. It has a wide variety of headsets, a wide variety of watches, a wide variety of tablets and laptops, and all these devices coexist very well with each other. You have Huawei Share to send and receive files easily between all these devices. The headphones, when you open them, are automatically detected. From your watch, you also have the camera shutter of the mobile device. You can synchronize alarms and many other functions. You can even use the entire cell phone directly from the laptop, and you can browse all your files without the need to connect it by a cable. So without a doubt, this is one of its strongest points. Although, with respect to the Internet of Things devices, it still does not have such an advanced interaction since it does not have Google Home, but it has its own application that you can install in App Gallery called AI Life. But there are still not many devices compatible with Huawei's standard. Fortunately, talking about cloud backup, Huawei does offer Huawei Cloud. You have a free storage base and you can extend it with various plans to back up all your photos easily and then view them on the computer. We are going to test how fast this device opens applications, since it has the Snapdragon 778G processor, a pretty good processor. But in this case, it comes in a 4G edition made especially for Huawei, since due to restrictions in the United States, it is not allowed access to applications, or to processors that have 5G technologies. So notice that we are having a good performance. It seems that it is a considerably fast processor. Although since the Huawei Nova 11 Pro we saw that it was not so well optimized for this device, also, I'm making some mistakes when opening applications, so that also seems to be affecting. But anyway, notice that I'm about to finish opening 16 applications and that's a very good time. 2.75 seconds it took on average. So it looks like we had a better experience on this device than we had on the Nova 11 Pro, which is its big brother. Now let's test how the RAM issue is, since it has 8 GB built in, and notice that it also feels very fluid when swapping applications. I think the RAM may be one of its strongest points because it does allow for very smooth switching. Now let's test its speed by exporting a 1-minute video in 4K using clips recorded with this cell phone, and let's set it to export in 4K resolution so we can see how long it takes using the maximum resolution it supports in video recording. Interestingly, it performed faster than its bigger brother, showing that this model has better optimization. So yes, it would allow you to edit videos in 4K, although the ideal in this range, it seems to me, is still to edit videos in Full HD. Now watch how it moves within these applications by scrolling, so you can see that it doesn't have a big drawback. In fact, I think it performs quite smoothly. Unlike its big brother, it just takes a little bit of time to react when switching between apps, but really once you're inside the apps, it doesn't seem to be behaving in a clumsy way. For games, it has this application called Games Zone, where the games we have installed will appear, and you can also open additional tools. It has game acceleration, a mode to avoid interruptions. You can also block screen gestures to avoid unwanted touches, just as you can disable the 3-finger captures and gestures with the knuckle. And finally, you can block the automatic brightness so that when you hold the device in this way, the screen brightness is not lowered. When entering a game, you can swipe down from the center to access all these functions, including an option to open applications in floating window mode, which can be very useful to answer a message without leaving your game. We can also take screenshots and record screenshots. It even has a selector of different color calibrations adapted to different styles of games, but the most prominent function is control movements. With it, you can map some buttons so that simply by turning your device, that button is triggered. As you notice, in this case, I enabled the button to duck my player. And if I turn to the other side, I could also enable the trigger or basically whatever button I want. In Call of Duty, by default, this device loads the quality very high at a high rate. We can also go up to the maximum rate. And notice, because it has a Snapdragon processor, it also has a lot of effects available. On screen, you are seeing the performance figures it had, but in general, we could tell you that this device does give you a good gameplay without becoming an expert. Although the heating could become slightly high, but nothing that really worries you. If you really like to play Call of Duty, I think this device will give you a very good experience. In PUBG by default, it loads HD graphics quality at a high rate. However, since it is a processor with a good path and not very modern, it is already very well optimized, so you can go up to an ultra rate with HDR graphics. You can even go to an extreme rate if you lower the graphics quality. So first we tested the ultra rate, although the screen recording doesn't go to that same level, but definitely that gives us good performance. On screen, you're seeing its stats, and it definitely also gives us good gameplay without it becoming a perfect running device. As that's not its priority, but it seems to be doing very well, with a very similar warm-up to what we had seen in the past game. With the extreme rate, again, we see excellent performance. Remember that the screen recordings are in HD, and we do them in a different session than the monitoring session, but either way, it gives us a good experience, even recording the screen. So if you are one of those players who like to make gameplays, you are also going to have a good experience, not only in this game, but in the others we have been testing. Finally, in Genshin Impact, by default, it gives us the low quality. However, for the test, we set it to high quality, and we also went up to 60 frames per second. On screen, you have the results of this test, but we can simply confirm that it is not a gaming specialist, and you can still have good gameplay. Obviously, it's not free of frames per second loss, nor are you going to have maximum fluidity. But in the price range, it seems to me that it behaves very well. In fact, I don't know why, it gives me the feeling that also here in games we have a much more optimized experience than what we saw in its big brother. And that has been all regarding the Huawei Nova 11. Hopefully you liked this video. If so, you know you can indicate it, and we'll see you next time.